for the last little while, you've been shooting, and I'm
that's what you
think. And I'm just like, yeah.
Why? Okay, speak for yourself so I can make sure. Do you think I shoot at you more than I shoot at Amani?
No.
Do you think I shoot at you more than I shoot at Flip?
No.
Okay, so what I want you to consider potentially is that I'm just treating you like everybody else, but when you're in a position of privilege.
Shut up!
But when you're in a position of privilege,
she
getting treated like everybody else feels like mistreatment. I didn't agree with you. If we're not going to talk about it, that's fine. But if we're going to talk about it, I have to be able to have space to say, yo, I don't agree with you.
Whatever. Carry on.
I mean,
I dismiss
Carry on.
It is dismissive, and I didn't bring this up.
I don't want this to turn into like a me and you thing. Like, I really don't. Like, I just
Then
don't.
why
I don't.
Okay.
Melyssa Ford versus Marc Lamont Hill. Now, this was something brewing for quite some time, and it finally boiled over in a on-air disagreement that the podcast was considering never releasing. This all started when Marc and Melyssa Ford were exploring if Marc is giving Melyssa Ford different treatment. Well, he is. Initially, it was good-natured jokes and slight pokes. You know, Marc was kind of exploring the themes of Melyssa Ford acting like she was the authority on certain subjects, but she really wasn't.
But what would you say to the person who might say, if you have had a bunch of failed relationships that don't lead to marriage at this stage in life, does that diminish your value?
I was gonna say that, but I ain't
Possibly. I left the situation for another one.
Well, girl.
I'll say the name.
Who was hot back there?
You're gonna
Sinbad or
bleep
somebody?
it, and then you'll see their reaction.
Who is it?
I know who he ain't. He ain't Reggie Bush.
Heisman?
You do a show
Sorry,
as you being the relationship expert.
Yes.
Now, would this be a part of like a whole series of things like relationships, car mechanics, astronaut? Would it be just a bunch like would you be trying different things?
Crazy. Astrophysicist.
Right. Just doing different shit. That's why I let you back on Friday so I can teach you how to pod.
But then it went to more existential questioning of Melyssa Ford's life choices and perceptions of herself. Case in point, the idea that Melyssa Ford can't get over what she has said since the beginning of her time on the show. The notion that video vixens were respected for anything other than objects of sexual gratifications, forces to be acted upon, rather than forces that people react to.
You'd be hard-pressed to find an interview where I didn't come across like I was flirting. Like, you know, if I'm considered like this pinup girl, which I literally was.
Can you then see how back then, in the height of your era, people may not have seen you the way you thought you were being seen, given what you just said?
Oh, he set up.
And the fact that you all
I'm
get
not trying to eat. I'm
trying to get part of the
it's
most.
some fucking tag team shit. It's fucking stupid because
I agree.
I didn't.
Yep.
Nowhere did I say that people regarded me as motherfucking Mother Teresa.
No.
Flirtation doesn't mean that you're a fucking whore.
No. I'm talking persona. I'm talking about not you. You, like you said, there was a persona that people thought was you, and that's the thing we were trying to say to you is that there's a way people saw you that might be different.
I got it. I see where
I see the
today.
fuck with
that.
I see it.
Things would even get further examined in future episodes where Marc tries to break down the perception of how Melyssa Ford sees herself versus how other people view her.
I think that maybe you're jaded from your experiences. And so I think there's a guardedness that you have that people experience as something else. And I'll give you an example. So like when I tell people I know you, especially now that I work here, you know, a lot of women who I know in the business or who have engaged me, like, is she cool? Yeah, Mel's cool as shit. Really? Because when I met her, blah, 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 blah. They don't say like you were nasty or you talk shit to them or nothing. Like, it's not that. That's what I'm saying. It's not. And it's not jealousy or hating because you may be up in a way that they're not and never will be. It's not that.
But they do have their stories.
Their stories. And I'm saying I think it's...
Stories like what?
Just what I think people experience a coldness sometimes from you that I think... Just hear me out. That I think is not you being a bad... I don't think it's... I think you've been burned before. And I think you've had people who have mistreated you and done things like that. And so I think you're guarded. I think you're... and I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think people misunderstand that.
So how am I any different from any other interaction that people have had with other people? That, like, how many stories do we hear where somebody's like, "Oh, I was such a fan or an admirer of this person," and they didn't get the reaction that they hoped to get on that particular day?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's fair, but it
isn't fair because when people come up to me, like, I am extremely fucking affable and friendly and all that. If you catch me on a day where some fucked up happened, or I'm just not okay, then I'm sorry you did not get the version of me that you hoped you were going to get. But I don't.
Sometimes people project that onto
anybody.
you, though.
I don't owe that to anybody.
And I really think this is the beginning of the change in Melyssa Ford's brain. She does not like how Marc is laying a axe to the construct of herself as this high esteemed video vixen.
I don't think anybody would say I come at Mel more than I come at Imani. Imani should probably punch me in the face like twice a week. You know what I mean? I come at Flip more than I come at Mel. I come at Ish more than I come at Mel. I come at Joe more than I come at Mel. But it's like if I offer a pushback against Mel suddenly, is because there was an expectation I was never going to do it, which I never said, that when I do, it's seen as this World War III, when in fact it's still probably 1/10 of what I do with everybody else. It wasn't a setup with the whole question about after the Steve Harvey thing. I didn't set that up. I didn't have a clip loaded or nothing like that. I said that sarcastic. I don't have clips loaded. Like, it was a topic and we talked about it. And I didn't know she was going to say it was her persona. I could not have foreseen what she was going to say to have some long con to respond. She just said something that in the moment made me go, oh, wait. But what about that last conversation? I was just trying to tie it back to the last conversation because I thought it was interesting. And I thought I did it pretty gently. It was, I think it's because everybody got up and walked off the couch that it turned into a spectacle. But I don't think I said it in any particularly like antagonistic way, because that's not how I move with anybody. You know what I mean? I might want to challenge somebody or push back or even joke, but like I never want to like play nobody or hurt nobody's feelings and none of that. And I don't think she was hurt by it, but I think but yeah, no, there was no ill intent there. It was really just like, yo, would you said this thing and now it's saying something that's different, and I wanted to point out the difference, not to prove her wrong, but to say like, can you now see how we saw it? That's all I was trying to say. Can you now see the other side of this?
Melyssa Ford, everybody believes the same about you that they believe about Superhead. They simply think that a book wasn't written. And I don't know, if you do any type of research about Melyssa Ford, you can kind of see where Melyssa Ford was the Superhead in the shadows, and Superhead was simply just putting on Front Street what every woman, every vixen was doing. Now, with Marc ramping up his pressings on Melyssa Ford, she is reckoning with her fall from grace in the eyes of yet another co-host. It's important to remember that when Melyssa Ford first arrived, it looked like Ish, Ice, Flip were all cool with her, but she has experienced falling out with all of them. If you notice, Ish looks like Melyssa Ford is a stone cold moron whenever she's trying to make a point. And Ice, even himself, has said that he doesn't even like taking pictures with Melyssa Ford just because of the perception of her and him hooking up. And it's not necessarily a reflection of Ice. It's more that he thinks that she just comes off a little bit like she uses sex to get what she wants, and he doesn't want to be associated with that. And another thing is flipping Melyssa Ford. Now, they might seem cool right now, but prior, they had real big issues with Melyssa Ford and Flip getting into it so much that Melyssa Ford would walk off camera, and it was as a result of Flip telling Melyssa Ford, yo, what people say in the industry about you is true. You're fake, you're phony, you like to use people. All you do is respect power. Now, I'm going to put a pin in that, but I want everyone to examine the dynamic between Flip and Melyssa Ford. Yes, they are cool, but the truth is, Flip read Melyssa Ford for filth, and now they're acting all good, trying to do skits. The only reason Melyssa Ford is opening up to Flip is because he's a manipulator. Flip knows that Melyssa Ford is out here on her own, so he's trying to rekindle a friendship, but that will crash and burn because it's not built on anything solid. But we'll get to that in a future video. But remember, Marc Lamont is the one that Melyssa Ford respects. Marc is the embodiment of everything she wants to be in the present day. He's respected for his intellect and nothing surface level. Ford, on the other hand, is almost 100% only respected for her days as a half-naked video vixen walking the set of rap videos that valued beauty over brains. People see knock yourself out. They don't see hot and bothered. She will never be respected for her brains unless she truly puts in the work, puts herself in spaces where she's constantly being challenged. Melyssa Ford is actually smart, but she just is afraid of being uncomfortable, so that's where her stunted growth has come from. She uses her beauty to get out of situations, so why would she ever need to grow? This back and forth with Marc represents her at her lowest. She couldn't articulate herself. She failed to come up with concrete reasons. And towards the end, she even tried to play the victim card.
There is a lot of provocation in the name of joking done up here. And then also, I have not really kind of like created or asserted any boundaries anymore. So a lot of times boundaries will be pressed in the name of a joke. About me being up here for like the last, I don't want to turn this into shit about me. I don't. This was a conversation we were having about on the board. It was a provoking, a provocative, interesting topic that I think that we should continue with.
Yeah,
and we can carry this on in Patreon later.
I'm
but
good.
I would rather.
I don't want to. I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave it alone.
Hinting that her time on the Joe Budden podcast has been mired in dogpiling, double standards, and the disrespect of women. Now, one would say, well, what show did you think you were joining? The Joe Budden podcast doesn't necessarily have a great relationship with women. I mean, all you got to do is look at the failed shows at their network. But, I mean, Mandy was on one of them. But Melyssa Ford isn't the only one dealing with these realizations. My guess is Marc, several months into his time on the Joe Budden podcast, is shocked at how the whole business is. Marc has been working in entertainment for 20 years, popping up in both entertainment and political outlets. He clocks in, he clocks out. However, the JPP represents a new challenge. He might have thought the podcast would give access to parts of the culture he rarely gets to speak to.
I think that the Joe Budden podcast is one of the most interesting and dynamic representations of Black life in America. It's one of the biggest platforms in media, and it creates space for me to be in conversation with communities that I normally am not in conversation with at that scale. When I'm on CNN, I'm talking to a lot fewer people, but also a lot fewer younger Black men and women, but it's just more male demographic. When I am, on the Griot, I'm not talking to that demo. When I was on Black News Channel, when I was on BET more, would I be on 106 in Park, but I also didn't have the space to do the stuff I was doing when I was a political correspondent for 106 in Park, when I was host of BET News,
And while it does, it opens up a Pandora's box of problems. The culture which Marc wants to market to has expectations of respect, no clout chasing allowed, and all of that stuff you hear Flip and Joe talk about, nasty work when people are trying to get views. Flip damn near wanted to fight Marc, not because Marc was wrong, but simply because Marc was making him look stupid in an argument.
Why you called me, asked me if I was cool with it for then?
Yeah, because you're Philly and I with you, but I don't give a though. I don't give a fuck now.
Don't call me about it. So how the is you justifying what I did? Well, how is you justifying what you did by saying I did something 3 days afterward?
I don't give a because that's just how I feel. It's disappointed.
And I'm not disappointed in you.
You are, and
I'm not disappointed in you.
Well, I'm disappointed in you. I took the video down though.
Right,
I have no ego and pride, and nobody can coerce me into feeling a way about somebody.
I respect that, and I just want you to know I'm not disappointed at all.
Same with Ish. Marc has made countless other news pundits look moronic, but in a culture that values respect, he can't do that and show up to work the next day like everything is fine. He can make that dude from Fresh and Fit look stupid. He can make the white guy who argues that critical race theory is hurting America look stupid, and then everything is cool, but he can't do that with Ish or Flip. I mean, Ish was super hesitant to debate Marc after that whole, flat earth thing and junk science debate. Then there's Ice, who Marc doesn't even want to go back and forth with because he knows how sensitive Ice is. At CNN, VH1, Huffington Post, Marc knew the product came first, But at the JBP, he has to wrestle with the fact that he must cater to people's feelings more than he has ever had to do at any place of business before. He actually has to care what Melyssa Ford thinks of him. He actually has to care if Ice feels comfortable going back and forth with him, because if he doesn't, it might make things look awkward. But this also proves my point that Marc is a cold office tactician. It's a theory I've explored on this channel and why I think Marc, to me, comes off disingenuous often. As JBP Elevated pointed out, which I have also observed myself, Marc only goes at the people Joe feels comfortable going at. Melyssa Ford, Flip, Ish, but not Ice nor Parks. It's not that Ice and Parks have no flaws of their own. Ice's opinions are redundant and seldom lack any true depth. Remember the whole Afrobeats thing? He said the music sucked but couldn't articulate why. He was on Twitter going on rants, and then when Flip challenged him about trying to chase clout and trying to get views on Twitter, he crumbled and cried like a little girl, so much so that he had to get in a shouting match with Flip to deflect from the fact that he was trying to get impressions on Twitter at a time where the money and the creator fund was rewarding divisive opinions. Then there's Parks. He's great at audio, but not much else. He sits on his high horse critiquing the talking points of others, but rarely offers any opinions of his own that last more than 3 sentences. I mean, really look at Parks. When does he ever facilitate a conversation outside of tearing someone down? He is not multifaceted. He loves hip hop. He just plays the archetype of that white guy on a hip hop show who loves hip hop down and out. I love Kendrick. I love Alchemist. Oh my God, Stuff God Cooks just dropped. I can't wait to listen after the pod is over. But your opinion sucks. I hate it. Oh my God, you're not offering anything, Ish. You're not offering anything, Marc. Oh, we got to move on. This subject isn't, it's hit the wall, but yet he provides nothing to the subject. Anyway, that's my mini Parks rant. Marc is doing what an office strategist does. He is letting the organizational chart define the boundaries of his actions. He knows that if he disses Ice and Parks, Joe will check him, which to me is Marc's greatest flaw. Why is he giving Melyssa Ford, Flip, Ish, and Imani equal treatment, but not Parks and Ice? It's because he knows that if he does so, Joe will get at him or tell him to stop. And to me, that is the pinnacle of corny. Treat everyone the same. Diss Parks and Ice. That is what would make the show special if everyone is up to being called out. As for how Melyssa Ford will proceed moving forward, I think she looked terrible in this exchange. As initially she said she was bothered by this whole back and forth, only to reveal that she would be okay with the releasing of the footage if she was paid more. This is a horrible message to send, as now she has communicated her morals and feelings are for sale. Did she really think that made everything fine? So that means, hey, disrespect Melyssa Ford, violate Melyssa Ford. As long as she gets money, she's going to be okay. It did nothing to dispel the rumors of her days as a video vixen, but that's a conversation for another day. Another key issue explored in this whole debacle is the idea of an edit button. For the last year, Joe has said that the cast has the right to suggest edits. I must say, Joe Budden did pull a trick on the last pod, though. Initially, Joe had always made it seem like he would be okay with the removing of what the cast wanted out. But now he is positioning it as something he can easily reject.
I also want to mention that we do discuss that we all have, the ability to say, edit that part out. We're told that constantly, aren't we? At least once an episode.
I agree.
So,
as a courtesy.
I don't know about once an episode, but
it's so frequent. It's quite frequent.
But do we also recognize that is a courtesy?
Yes.
My guess is Ian and Joe hate this rule and now want to be able to air whatever they want whenever they want. Don't be surprised if there's a live interpretation of the show forward to deal with this issue, because there has been countless classic moments that the podcast has left on the cutting room floor. One being the Imani and Ish argument, where Imani went at Ish for saying that he couldn't teach him anything about podcasts. Then there was the argument I had mentioned before, the one where Flip made Melyssa Ford walk off set by questioning her values as a person and what she contributes to the entertainment business. I would argue that the behind the scenes was created to address the issue I'm outlining here, but the cast ruined that concept so much by playing it safe that Ian had to pivot into making the show more scripted, right? That's a theory a lot of people are saying, like, yo, I liked the idea of behind the scenes. I liked when y'all was, cataloging the arguments between Flip and Ian, between Flip and Joe, but after that, you guys started doing scripted nonsense, and I don't think the show wanted to go in that direction. I think what happened is Ian and Joe were like, all right, let's show the behind the scenes in a scripted version. Let's reveal like only people who are trying to read between the lines could see that the scripted version is trying to show what's going on behind the scenes. Like that whole bit about Ian getting the water and changing it to cheap water so Ish wouldn't drink expensive water all the time. That was them trying to communicate, we don't like the fact that Ish is wasting our water making coffee and all of this jazz. While the culture is very beautiful, it can also be blinding. This is content creation. This isn't the block. This is a chance for everybody to change their lives. And it would be great if people like Flip and Ish realize that, as opposed to trying to talk about respect on something that is recorded and put out to millions of people. How the Joe Budden podcast navigates culture versus content will determine if the show is purely a money-making platform for Joe or a pop culture phenom that transcends the limitations of time and sparks many copycats like the previous iteration of Rory and Mal did. But let me know what you think about Melyssa Ford versus Marc Lamont Hill. I think this is a fork in the road moment for the podcast. Will they be more finite in releasing what is actually happening on the show? I think this is the next big moment for the Joe Budden podcast. You got Marc on the show. You essentially have a player who's scoring 27 a night. You got Joe on the show, a player who's scoring 27 a night. You got Flip on the show. He used to score 27 a night. Now he's doing like 17. But that right there is enough. You have the building blocks of something that can really go to the next level. Or you have something that is going to be limited because everybody's trying to play it safe. And I think at this point, the people who are trying to play it safe, they need to be pushed off the show or kicked off completely. I'm looking at you, Melyssa Ford. I'm looking at you, Ice. And I'm even looking at you, Ish. All you want to do is debate, but you don't want to participate in the things that will actually help this be viral, be special, and maybe make a run at the Rory and Mal era. All right, y'all. I want to end this video by saying shout out to everybody. I did a long video on this because I think Melyssa Ford versus Marc represents way more than just Melyssa Ford versus Marc. There was the idea of, Melyssa Ford playing the victim, Marc realizing that he is in a workplace that he can no longer navigate and think that he is at CNN. This is an unprofessional workplace that puts value on friendship dynamics, which helps the show better, but also makes the show worse. This is a Rubik's Cube of problems. But we will see how they navigate it over the next few years. I think there's going to be a year-long challenge for the show. With that said, follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. Follow me on Patreon, The Stop TV. And I'm going to leave the science class with a mystery to examine. Examine the last few names of what the Rory and Mal podcast is doing. Go look at their channel. Examine what is going on. The titles of their podcast, the full episodes, not the clips, just the full episodes, they seem to have changed. Leave the science in the comments. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.